Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about why our Dungeons and Dragons games are safer than we thought they were. And Actually, you know what? I'll give a IRL spoiler warning. I'm going to talk about Ukraine and Russia in this video. If that might not be your jam, to me, I look at Dungeons and Dragons as a second coda in my life. It allows me to unlock wisdom and truth that the first coda in my life doesn't speak on, right? And so there's really, I look at life at this point through the filter of Dungeons and Dragons, and there's really nothing that I don't think Dungeons and Dragons can't help me understand, and there is nothing beyond the limits of Dungeons and Dragons for me, right? Dungeons and Dragons is such an integral part of my life. My life is marinated in Dungeons and Dragons to the point where everything that comes to me, like generally, with very few exceptions, comes through the filter of Dungeons and Dragons. How is this going to interact? How is this going to change my interaction with Dungeons and Dragons? Is it going to make it better or worse? And I'm going to make decisions based on that, right? And so I look at Ukraine, Russia through the filter of Dungeons and Dragons. Is this going to impact my Dungeons and Dragons game? That might not be your jam. Go forth with you. You can find amazing content on Nerd Immersion. You can find amazing content over on Dungeon Craft with Professor Dungeon Master. Ginny D is still popping off, has great videos, lots of other people to go check out. So, and man, there's been a lot of great channels like popping up lately. I'm sorry I only gave you my normal three, because there's really some amazing stuff that is Indestructo Boy. I watch him every now and then. There's a lot of great new channels, right? So if you don't want to hear me talk about Dungeons and Dragons in context, Ukraine and Russia, go forth. I understand, not a problem. That's the other thing is I don't understand why anybody got confused about this. Nobody forces anybody to watch a YouTube channel, right? So. All right, let's go forward. Okay, so we every Sunday night we run our Dungeons and Dragons game, right? Or we get prepared, or we use that time to prepare for an upcoming convention game, right? And are our planned Dungeons and Dragons game this week? Are they going to happen, right? Well, Vladimir Putin has made it very clear that they may not, right? Vladimir Putin has put out an open threat to the world. Vladimir Putin, in my opinion, has 100% declared war on the world. He's like, I'm going to bully, savagely, murder their citizens, and bury them in mass graves. I'm gonna savagely murder Ukrainians every single day, right? You are all gonna watch. And if any one of you sticks your nose in it, I'll NW arc your country. I'll just send the NW, I'll arc the NWs over. I'll hit multiple of your cities, and you and all your people will blow away in ash. Same way it happened in Hiroshima, same way it happened in Nagasaki. I will NW arc you, right? Just open threat, right? And so now I'll tell you right now, if I was president, I'd say, okay, you declared war on America and every other country. You got it. Here's 500,000 boots on the ground. We're going to take Moscow, and that's going to be. And actually, I kept saying that we'd give it to Zelensky, but since they're holding Brittany Griner and are absolutely, in my opinion, doing acts of war against America now, I think America should just own Moscow and done, right? So, and the Russian people, I get it. They're having a bad time. They can't seem to choose a leader who is kind or tolerant. They should have some repercussions for that. But, I think there should be a chance for the Russian people to redeem themselves from this horrible decision they've made. And the reason why we should give them a little bit of space is we elected our own monster between 2016 and 2020, right? Nothing to the level of Vladimir Putin, but we definitely have a little bit of experience of putting monsters in in the wrong places, monsters in leadership, right? So basically, so what's at stake here, right? Is our Dungeons and Dragons game going to be safe? Are we going to be able to play, or are players going to be turned to ash, right? And that's frustrating, right? If you live on the outskirts of town, but your players live on the inskirts of town, right? And your players all blow away in ash because Vladimir Putin decided to NW arc them. Right? That's a problem. That's going to disrupt your Dungeons and Dragons game, right? That's what's at stake here. Is our Sunday game going to happen, right? So I think the whole world was terrified about this, right? I'm here to calm everyone. And the reason why is Dungeons and Dragons, because it contains wisdom, because it contains beauty, because it contains truth, I think shows us the reality of it. And here's what I'm going to tell you. There's never ever going to be another NW arc in the history of humanity. It'll never happen again. Nagasaki and Hiroshima are the last. And Dungeons and Dragons explains to us why. Okay? So let me explain it to you in Dungeons and Dragons terms. Okay? Player character. You know what they are. You've been them. Right? You are a player character. You sit at the table and the world revolves around you. Okay? Right? And you make decisions and you say things and dragons die or cities get saved or treasures get plundered, right? You are a hinge in the history of Forgotten Realms, okay? Your player character, right? So here's the issue. President Joseph Biden, he is a player character. Vladimir Putin, he is a player character. Volodymyr Zelensky, he is a player character. Now let's talk about sidekicks. Sidekicks were introduced in the Essentials Kit, okay? I think the Essentials Kit came out in 2019. Fantastic product. I literally bought about a dozen of them, $8 a piece at Target, and I gave, I own my own Essentials Kit, and I've given no less than 10 away to people to just say, hey, here you go, man, start playing Dungeons and Dragons for $8. If you can get somebody playing Dungeons and Dragons with everything they need for $8, that's an amazing deal, right? So Essential Kits is a launching pad to play Dungeons and Dragons, and it introduced this thing called a sidekick. Now, a sidekick is a good guy, okay? They are allied to the Dungeons and Dragons hero, okay? And it's literally one card, right? And it gives a stat, and it says it gives you the sidekick is a real person, right? In that they're described as they have a real name, they have a real picture on them, and they are distinct. They're different than other sidekicks, but they run off of a stat block, right? And the reality is the world does not revolve around them. The things they decide don't matter, right? And that's the issue is we will never, and this is what I'm saying. Here's where we're going. Keep up, right? We will never have another NW arc situation in the history of humanity. And the reason why is everybody who will turn a key, and in order to NW arc, you have to turn a key, right? No leader in the world has the ability to hit a button and then everything launches, right? They hit a button, that sends a message and says, hey, turn that key. And then two real humans turn the key, right? And that kicks off, another Nagasaki, another Hiroshima. It's horrible, right? It's just, it's what we don't want to happen. But here's the kicker. Player characters have huge amounts of agency and wealth and adventure, and they have choices and options, right? But they actually can't launch NWs by themselves. Not a one of them. Not President Biden and not Vladimir Putin, right? No country in the world has set up systems where a leader can actually launch, where a player character can actually launch an NW. The only people who can launch NWs are people who turn keys, key turners. You know what every single key turner in the world is? A sidekick, right? The world don't revolve around them, right? They don't have power at massive scale, right? They're just a soldier, right? They're a key turner. They are a sidekick. And guess what? Sidekicks dig sidekicks, right? And the world has changed. We don't have nations where you can fool everybody anymore. And the reason why is the mobile phone. Every one of these sidekicks, every one of these key turners on both sides, on the Russian side and on the American side, right? And this is it. I really don't think Americans would key turn either. I don't think there's a key turner in the world who will turn a key. I don't think there's a soldier in the world who would turn a key now. And the reason why is we've reached a point where these soldiers are like, hey, I see the world for what it is, right? And right now, I guarantee you say to the U.S. military, hey, get over there and free Ukraine, they're going to do it, right? And the reason why is they're like, yeah, fight for freedom, fight a villain. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm down. Let's go, right? But Russia's proven it right now. Soldiers don't want to do evil, right? Sidekicks don't want to kill sidekicks. They don't, right? They're like, hey, I'm a sidekick, right? I'm a person who's been pushed down all his whole life, right? I will fight for freedom. I will fight for what's right. And defending Ukraine, right? and handing all of Russia to Ukraine is the right thing to do at this point, right? And I think every American soldier would do it, right? They'd be happy to do it, right? Because who doesn't want to fight a villain, right? But in Russia, they're like, these Ukrainians aren't villains, and the reality is, with the ubiquity of the mobile phone, people can see truth, right? And everybody sees it. Everybody sees it. Look at every single video that comes out of Russia now, right? It's just these Russians sitting frowning in front of Vladimir Putin. Nobody having a good time there. They're like, oh my gosh, we are on a train ride to hell, right? They know it, right? And so the reality is, no sidekick is gonna turn a key for a player character, and that's just it. Vladimir Putin's a player character, right? Every soldier who would turn a key is a sidekick, right? But because of the ubiquity of the mobile phone and the ubiquity of sidekicks, knowing their sidekicks and being allied to sidekicks, this is, people are complaining about TikTok, right? But that's sidekicks watching sidekicks, and sidekicks saying, hey, why don't we make this sidekick famous, right? And the reality is, there's so much of this going on where sidekicks are like, you know what? I'm not turning people to ash for this fool, right? I'm not going to do villainy for somebody. And I actually think we're far, far safer than we were in 1939 to 1945. There was one dude, and because there weren't mobile phones, he could get away with that nonsense, right? But nowadays, it's too easy for sidekicks to see the real world, and sidekicks are gonna join with sidekicks, and there is not a key turner left in this world. There ain't a key turner left. There are soldiers who have been given the responsibility of key turning, and I don't think a single one of them will do it. I really don't. I think the day of the key turner is done, right? And the reason why is they're like, hey, I'm a soldier, I'm a human being, I'm a sidekick, and I ain't gonna kill a bunch of sidekicks for you, right? And so the reality is, when we look at how the breakdown of power actually is, player character versus sidekick, you get a lot of benefits as player character, but there's limits, and I'll tell you right now, I think there's a limit now. I don't think player character can tell sidekicks, go kill sidekicks, and it's going to get done. It doesn't. We're seeing that every day in Russia. He's like, mobilization. Every Russian man who could get on a bus was gone, right? There are stories coming out and saying, like, you can't find a man in Moscow now, right? And the reason why is they're like, hey, I'm a sidekick. Those Ukrainians are sidekicks. Sidekicks ain't going to kill sidekicks for a player character. It ain't going to happen, right? And so, in my opinion, there ain't a key turner left in the world. No sidekicks can kill sidekicks just because a player character told them to. Not anymore, right? So, in my humble opinion, your Dungeons & Dragons game on Sunday is 100% safe. You're fine, right? That fool ain't going to NW arc anybody because he can't actually do it. That's my humble opinion. I'm eager to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.